What if I told you the most powerful response you can ever give is nothing? No comeback, no explanation, no defense, just silence. In a world addicted to noise, silence has become a superpower. Today, we're talking about the power of silence and why mastering it can change your relationships, your confidence, and your success. Welcome to my channel. My name, as always, is Yabbies on. You're welcome, and I hope you leave leaving better than you came. We're going to talk about silence. I'm just going to touch on different areas generally about the power of silence, and maybe along the line we'll delve in deeply. Silence is power. Most people talk to fill up space. Most people talk because they are anxious. They try to explain too much. They try to defend quickly. They react emotionally. But silence creates mystery. Silence creates control. Silence makes people lean in. Look at some of the most powerful people you know in history. Just look at how they speak. What makes them stand out is silence. They understood what most people did not. You don't have to speak to command respect. When you stay silent in a heated moment, you immediately shift the power dynamics. The other person expects a reaction. When they don't get one, they feel it. Silence forces reflection. It's about silence being a power, even a psychological power, you can say. Another way you can emphasize or demonstrate the power of silence is during conflict. Now imagine a scenario where somebody insults you or says derogatory things towards you. Most people would like to defend themselves. Most people like to argue. Most people like to try to win, like prove that, hey, you cannot talk to me this way and go. But this is where silence comes in. When you stay calm, look them in the eye and say nothing when they are expecting you to do something. You communicate something really, really powerful that, hey, I'm not threatened by you. Silence shows emotional control, and emotional control is dominance. Reacting is easy. Everybody can react. Like, that's the first thing your mind tells you to do, react. But silence tells you that, hey, chill. Silence is mastery. Another thing about silence is that silence builds confidence. From all the 2 points I've just mentioned earlier, you realize that you sort of exude some form of control, some form of dominance over the situation. And silence, when used well, can help build your confidence. Confident people don't rush to fill gaps in conversations. They pause, they reflect, they speak with intention. People who are able to use silence properly, you realize that in their conversations, they try not to use filler words but instead of filling in the filler words to just make up for the quietness in the room at that point, they are not afraid to go silent. Silence helps you to organize your thoughts, speak more with control, and let people know that you are in control of what you're saying and you're also in control of the room. Exactly. You're not afraid of the room being quiet. Silence doesn't mean you're afraid. Silence doesn't mean you don't know what you're saying, but it shows that you're not afraid of the quietness. Also, when you're speaking and you're quiet, it helps you assess the temperature of the room, the vibe of the people you're speaking with. And you have to be confident to be able to do these things. And silence helps you do that. Why? Because when you're insecure, you over-explain. But when you are confident, you do not need validation from anybody. Silence says, I am confident and comfortable with myself. Another way silence can be demonstrated is in relationships. And in this case, I'm not going to touch on romantic relationships. Let's just talk about friendships in general. Silence isn't just power, it is wisdom. When someone is emotional, they do not always need advice. They just want to be heard. Maybe a friend comes to you with a broken heart or with a sob story, and then you want to go into solution mode. Oh, I want you about this person. I want you about this person. When people are in love, you can't really advise them like that. So in such a situation, sometimes your silence is very good. Like your silence is needed in such a friendship, relationship. Platonic relationship like that. So sometimes the most loving thing you can do to someone is just to sit by them, not talking, just listening to them and saying nothing. No fixing, no correcting, no interruptions, just presence. Silence makes people feel safe, and in relationships, safety is everything. Now, you can also use silence as a strategy, I think from all the points we have listed, we can already see that there's some strategy in there in being silent, but let's break it down a bit. In negotiations, the first person who usually talks almost always loses leverage. There's a reason why elite interviewers and negotiators always use long pauses. It makes the other person reveal themselves more, and that's true. Sometimes when you're in an interview and then they ask you a simple question, maybe they can say, tell me about yourself. Sometimes from the way the person answers, you can tell that This person lacks confidence, because tell me about yourself is a very strategic question. I have had the privilege of interviewing several people in my line of work, and from the tell me about yourself question, you can tell a lot about the person. From a tell me about yourself question, some people may go about their history, who they are, where they were born, their parents, and they may not even talk anything about who they are relates to the position they are applying for, because they tend to ramble, they're a bit nervous. And I know sometimes when people are nervous, they talk a lot. But this same question to a confident person who is not afraid of being silent, they can talk about this regardless of the pauses that come in between. Take the necessary pauses. Actually think and reflect on the question even before answering. And tell me about yourself question can be answered differently by different people, and outcomes may always vary. Even in movies, silence creates some intensity, as a viewer, as the audience. You're like expecting something to be happening in the movie, but the silence create some form of intensity which adds to the build-up of the movie. Some of the most powerful scenes in movies are not loud, they are quiet, like they're filled in with some silences and some very, very useful conversations and dialogues which piques your interest as a viewer. Silence builds anticipation, and anticipation builds power. So this is one of the ways silence can be strategic. You need to be disciplined to be able to use silence. Honestly, silence is hard. To be silent is hard. When somebody is playing the fool and you want to say something, when somebody's annoying you and you want to say something, when your friend is messing up, you see they are digging a hole for themselves, and you've spoken about it so many times and you want to say something, but in this case you have to restrain yourself. You have to be disciplined. You have to be patient. You have to control your ego, all in the best interest of your friend, your own self, depending on the situation. We live in an age of constant reaction, immediate gratification, social media arguments, instant replies, endless opinions, and sometimes silence feels uncomfortable, but it forces you to sit with yourself. Sometimes I post some things on the internet, and then sometimes people would come and comment, and I'm tempted to reply to their comment in a certain kind of way immediately, but sometimes I'm like, I'll not even bother to reply. And sometimes I'm like, let me just take my time. Let me take my time. Let me go and think about it. Let me go and sleep on it. And then when you sleep on it, you come back and like, oh, you can just reply without attaching too much emotions because you understand silence. I always say that you can control your reaction. You can never control people's actions. So how you react to an action of someone says a lot more about you, because the other person we already can see from the action who they are. But from you, it says a lot more about how you can control the situation and everything. And this is where silence also comes into play. Because most people can't do this. Most people want to talk, want to insult, want to give their peace of mind. People can't sit in their own silence. They want something to be happening all the time, probably because they're afraid of their silence and their own thoughts. But when you sit in your own silence, you observe more. You learn more, not just about society and things around you, but you also learn more about yourself. You reflect, you meditate on your life as an individual, and you feel less reactive. Silence sharpens perception. So here's a challenge. Let me challenge you. The next time someone provokes you and you feel the urge to over-explain, pause. Next time you're about to react emotionally, choose silence. Remember, noise is common, silence is rare, and rare is powerful. So thank you guys. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, kindly like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so that the next post I come up with, you are the first to see it. Until then, love you all. Ta-ta.